Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back. I hope everyone is safe and doing well. Well, today we have another AI-powered and codeless test automation platform called Avo. And as you know, in medium to large size enterprises where the application teams, the program teams, they focus on multiple technologies, be it SAP or Oracle or any other SaaS-based platform, plus their homegrown platforms. They cannot go for different tools for each of these technologies. It would be making much better sense if we have something standard and that supports reusability across projects and so on. And Evo is such a platform where its versatility actually makes it very popular, the way it supports types of technologies, be it web or mobile or any other platform, APIs and so on. It's a great tool to consider for automation for your enterprise. We'll be talking about its features and the way it can be leveraged during your test automation process more during this discussion. So without further ado, let's get started. We have Vidur Amin from Avo Automation, who is the CEO of Avo Automation. It's an honor to have Vidur today. Vidur, welcome and thank you so much for taking time and joining us to talk about Avo Automation, such a nice and powerful test automation platform. So with that, would you like to start this discussion with a quick intro about you, your responsibilities, and the product journey so far? That would be great to start this discussion now.
Sure, absolutely, Troy. And first off, thank you for having us on your show. We're excited to showcase our platform to your audience. So very quickly, my name is Vidur Amin. I'm the CEO of Avo Automation. Avo is a products business focusing on functional test automation along with API test automation. I also have on the call with me Santosh Chitriki, who is our senior sales engineer, and Annalisa Camarillo, who is our head of marketing. So now let me tell you a little bit about Avo and our journey to get here. Very quickly, like I mentioned, we focus on functional and API testing. We're a high performer on G2. Even though we're a relatively newer brand in the market, our product has been in development for over 5 years now. And what we've done is we've looked at automation much more broadly than just typical test automation. We've said, it's important to make sure that there's an easy way to capture test flows as well, the required scenarios that you need to test. So we have a process discovery product as well that enables users to go ahead and capture the scenario that they would like a tester to test. And then very easily, we can auto-generate the test cases in our Avo Assure platform. We also do have a light RPA product. So if clients want to move not just in the testing world, but move into the actual process automation world, we've enabled that. But all of this is powered through our core algorithms, which are built on computer vision, AI technology. And it's allowing us to capture objects across a whole bunch of technologies, in fact, over 200. A lot of our clients are typically large Fortune 500 customer base in the US. Most of it is in US. We're also now getting some clients in Asia, specifically Japan, along with Europe. And because we cover such a broad range of technologies, we like to push the limit of the platform as far as possible. And for those of you that have tried to automate projects on, say, SAP or Oracle, traditional desktop-based applications, it's a little bit harder. And we're very proud of the fact that Avo is one of the few test automation partners to SAP, and similarly with Oracle. In fact, we're just about to launch a partnership with Oracle in the coming weeks as well. I'm also happy to share that all of our products work interchangeably with each other. So once we capture certain data in, say, the process discovery product, it very easily moves into the test automation product. Similarly with the RPA product as well. And let me quickly give you an overview about how we got here. So Avo is the culmination of the R&D center at SLK, their work over the last 6-7 years now, actually. And let me give you a little bit of overview on SLK. So SLK is the company that focuses on IT services out of India. It's a privately owned company, one of the larger privately owned companies with a team of over 8,000 people. We started in 2000. And we've always had a big focus on QA. And what we noticed was, way back in 2010, 2011, there was a push for more and more test automation because tools had started to evolve from the typical record and play tools of 20 years ago, right? And as our clients started to ask us to do more and more test automation, we felt there was a clear gap in the market. And because we had such a large center of excellence doing QA, we asked them for input on what they liked about certain products and what they didn't like about certain products, and what would they like as additional features in a product, right? If you build it. So we really crowdsourced a lot of the usability and features from our community of testers within SLK initially. And from there, we started the journey to build our test automation platform. And like I said, all of it started with a core AI computer vision algorithm to easily pick up objects on the screen. Now the algorithm is so mature that we handle all types of objects, including dynamic objects on Angular, React, almost anything that comes to us, we're able to automate in a very short span of time, right? And the first product that we launched was our test automation product, formally launching version 1 in 2017. But at this point, we were still keeping the product very, very in-house, used for the SLK client base. And then in subsequent years, we applied the same core algorithms to build process discovery and RPA solutions. And then our clients around 2019, 2020 said, look, we really like your platform, but please offer it to us as a generally available product in the market where we can buy our licenses independently. We can go ahead and get training from you, certifications, have the community around, so on and so forth, that, most product businesses need in order to address the market. And that's when we decided, let's go ahead and build out the Avo brand in 2020. So it's only been about a year so far, but I'm happy to say that we've got a good amount of traction with large scale manufacturing and banking clients across the world. Just to name a few, recent wins include, Sony Pictures in the US, Mizuho, and then large manufacturing clients like Emerson Electric, so on and so forth. So now, I think I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how we're seeing this market evolve. So like I said, initially test automation, and I'm sure you've seen this as well with your experience in this industry for so long, all the initial products in the market were focused on record and play, or pixel-based, object capture or object recognition to play with automation, right? And we started to see a level of maturity in these tools over the last, say, 10 years or so, where they moved from typical pixel-based coordinates or typical pixel-based object recognition to more complex abilities to recognize objects on the screen, right? But we still feel that very few products in the market offer the ability to do so much automation on so many different types of technology in a simple and easy to use platform. And that's when I'll show you in the demo how simple it is to do end-to-end automation on so many different types of technologies across multiple systems and in a no-code environment, right? So we're going to show you a demo of this. Do feel free to ask us any questions. We'd be more than happy to go into a little bit more detail.
Sure, Vidur. So one thing that I would like to ask here is, since you have such a kind of large customer base, right, supporting on different technologies, platforms, domains. So what you see, like during this pandemic time, or otherwise even in general, the problem statements from automation standpoint, what your customers need at this point of time, from automation perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, most of us have seen this trend. We've seen a need for automation pickup. I think a lot of customers oftentimes have a hard time justifying the ROI around automation. But the reality is that quality is core to your business's reputation in the market, right? And if people look at it in that perspective, all of a sudden they look at test automation in a very different light, right? And with the pandemic, what we've noticed is a large demand for technology at scale. We're seeing this across the world, right? You can see the biggest technology companies in the world constantly increasing their earnings and revenue. And thereby, we're also seeing additional investments in large Fortune 500 companies focusing on technology. And with that, they're also focusing on automation as a method for them to do more with the same budgets, right? And for example, one of our clients in the insurance industry came to us a couple of days ago. And while we're doing test automation with them, they asked about process discovery, right? And I found that very interesting. And I said, quite frankly, are you looking at process discovery or process mining? And their response to me was, we're looking at process discovery because what we've noticed is we have a high level of attrition coming into our business right now. We don't have our processes documented. And we are at a stage where we have a lot of people that are also going to retirement, right? They've been in this business for 20 years with us, but quite frankly, we don't know all of the intrinsic knowledge that they have. So we need a way to capture all of the all of the processes in detail, so it's easy and it's not a risk to our business, right? So we're seeing a lot more adoption of technology from an automation standpoint, but also from the standpoint of making sure that they retain their core IP or knowledge as we move into this world of a lack of talent available in the market, or a lot more options for talent to look elsewhere, right? And I think that's driving a lot of demand towards having more and more automation built in, so that we can do more, right? And there's less of a reliance on individual people and more of a focus on quality as a holistic approach, to enterprise success.
Got it. So looks like, enterprises are considering more like, headless kind of, automation or touchless automation, where things can be done with less intervention from, individuals, resources, right?
That's right. That's right. But I would also like to stress the fact that what we've seen is, and we talk about test automation as an example here, right? What we see is testing in the agile world, right? Or in most cases, I was looking at a recent report where they asked what's the slowest part of the software delivery lifecycle, right? And the largest response came in from the testing function. In the sense, they felt the testing was the slowest part in the entire lifecycle, right? But my thought into this is, testing is often not given enough of a strategic seat at the table, right? Testers need to be looked at more in the light of quality specialists, right? And if they have the ability to leverage automation, easy automation at scale, it frees up their time to do different tasks. For example, the next biggest area that organizations call out in terms of what slows down software delivery is planning, right? And we can think of planning as a couple of things, but we see a lot of planning around requirement gathering, right? So if we have automation built in at scale from a testing perspective, why can't these testers or quality specialists be focused more on the planning side, making sure the requirements are of a high enough quality as well, and thereby making sure that their developers are coding right the first time as well, right? And that's a strategic shift in the way organizations look at quality. And I feel it's really, really important that the entire community or the entire software delivery team looks at this in a larger perspective. The importance of quality cannot be understated for the overall experience of software delivery, or the speed of software delivery.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, Vidur. Right, that was insightful, Vidur. So, and strategically, what I see is like your platform is supporting almost a lot of technologies, right? I can see SAP. Avo also supports Salesforce and so on. Like, do we have some level of optimization for these technologies, or how do you kind of strategize the automation for different customers on different technologies?
Absolutely. So like I said initially, our core algorithm has the ability to capture most types of objects, right? But often for certain specific packaged applications, we need to tweak it and release a certain package for a certain type of technology. For example, initially when we worked with SAP, we were supporting about 70% of the objects were getting captured, right? But very quickly, we were able to build a very specific package for the SAP market to make sure we could capture all types of technologies across SAP, right? And that's with our simple point and click option, which you'll see in the demo. We also have a capability called Iris, which uses a more complex form of computer vision to pick up objects on the screen, which are much harder to identify, right? And if time permits in the demo, we'd love to show you that as well. But it's a combination, to just answer your question in a summary, it's a combination of our ability to automate all types of different applications using our Iris technology, right? Which is a little bit more of a time-consuming task, but it gets you the ability to capture all the unique objects. Or the simpler approach is we support so many, for example, SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, all web applications, including Salesforce. We have these particular capabilities covered. But if a new client comes on board, or multiple clients come on board and they say, hey, we want a specific ability to capture, let's just say a technology like IFS, right? It's another ERP vendor out of Europe. Then we could very quickly assess whether the product is capturing 95% or more of IFS's objects or not. If we're capturing not more than 95%, we'll go ahead and quickly, within 2 months, build a specific package for IFS as a technology, right? And that's how we're able to very quickly adapt to the market needs based on what clients are focusing on. And quite frankly, it's also a matter of how invested are the clients with us, right? If they're going to go ahead and tell us that we want to use you across the enterprise, we're more than happy to then look at this in a very strategic manner and assess their entire technology stack and tell them, hey, we support 90% of this today. Give us 6 months, we'll support the remaining 10% of your unique application types, for example.
Got it. Very nice. I think that's a pretty cool feature, Vidur, like, customizing or a kind of, doing a package to support certain technologies that are used by a, particular enterprise. I think that's a cool feature, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. We want to work with our clients as much as possible. I think it's important that we collaborate, because our goal is to make sure test automation is no longer considered, 30% is good enough.
Yep.
My view is every feature that is not automated or doesn't have an automated test, it reduces the overall lifetime value of that feature. And in essence, that's another way you can look at the cost, right? If you have an automated test for every functionality, you then have a functionality that will last much longer than relatively not having an automated test. And over time, that feature, has more and more issues, and then, it gets sunset a lot more quickly. So
Yep.
that's my view on this. Absolutely.
Super. Vidur, thank you so much for the nice summary around your platform journey, and thank you for sharing your insights around your automation platform roadmap, and sharing your thoughts around industry. Thank you so much again.
Absolutely. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Santosh to walk you through at a high level what the platform covers, and then we'll go into a demo.
Sounds good.
So, I'm Santosh Chitraki. I head the SE for Avo. Like Vidru was mentioning, a couple of very important point here. There are a lot of tools outside where they say there's no code, low code, but the whole idea of what we're trying to achieve here is to simplify the entire platform, where even though it is no code, anybody should be able to automate, right? What we have been seeing, the biggest challenge lately is when it comes to test automation, you see a non-automation engineer or a business or a manual tester, either they shy away to get into or participate into test automation because it is very technical oriented, right? Or it's hard for them to leverage the automation scripts or automation or automated test cases that have been automated by any other platform. Now that is where we are bringing in the entire simplicity of this platform. Even though we support 200 plus different technology, we can automate the most complex test cases or technologies, but the entire approach, the user interface, how easily you can a business user or a manual tester can leverage the automation, the automated test steps or test cases that has been automated, right? And also what we're trying to do is enable the entire collaboration across different non-QA team as well, right? Now, like Vidru was mentioning, we are SAP certified, Oracle certified. We support 200 plus different technologies. This is on-prem solution. It is client-server architecture. It's a browser-based, and our entire core computer vision and AI sits on the end user's machine as a simple file or a simple engine, right? It's not a heavy installation that is required. It's very light file that sits on the end user machine or any machine that is going to be used for execution, right? Now, this is completely browser based. It also do support most of your cloud as well. Now, here to start with, these are all the different technologies that we support, right? Your web, your desktop, mobile, both for iOS and Android. Now, when it comes to mobile, we support, apps, native apps, mobile apps, web apps as well. SAP, Salesforce, mainframe, Citrix. Now, the reason why we call out Citrix, so confidently is because we see, we have been seeing a lot of challenges when you need to automate any application, sitting on those VDI. It's very hard to, capture those objects. But using our computer vision, we have simplified that as well. And then finally, API. Now, when it comes to API, when you look at the tool, you'll really see how simple it is. And we keep getting a lot of questions like, how do you guys manage the web services? So in a simple way to say, what our Postman or a Swagger do, we do that, but in a much more simpler and much more efficient fashion. So that way, you don't need to be very technical. You want to, make some API calls or some web services, right? Now, the framework what we are using is a POM framework, that is a page object model framework, right? So it is keyword driven. We have built a library that's your action library around 1500 plus. That is the core for us. The way it works is based on the object that you have captured, right? The tool is going to be filtering those actions which are associated with that specific object, right? And then you can start automating. Now,
Yeah.
so now what you're seeing here on the screen, this is the demo flow, and plus it's a very typical QA flow that everybody practices. When it comes to manual. And when it comes to automation, this is where we are doing things a little different. But if you see at the first step, right, first process is planning and design. So here we are giving you a platform where you can, plan your entire test design. That means test flow, right? How would you want to test your modules? Now, when you talk about modules, it's nothing but a business logic or a functionality that you want to test, right? Now, with that, what are the different scenarios you can start, building? Now, after that, what screens you're going to be engaging to test those scenarios, and finally, what are the test cases? Now, what we are trying to do here is we are trying to eliminate. First of all, we are trying to eliminate that exercise of you going in Excel or Word and writing the test cases. So visually, you start mapping out your entire test flow, and then you can start getting into automation quickly. Now, for this, we are using something called mind map. That is a very visual approach. Now, because it's so visual, right, understanding the whole test flow is very easy, right? Adapting, then scaling, reusing, and maintaining becomes very, very easy. Now, when it comes to the second step of the process where you're automating and you're executing, there are two major components of automation, right? We all understand that. One is how efficiently you can build an object library and how efficiently you can automate. So that is where we have simplified, like Vidhu was mentioning, all that end user need to do is just click on that object, and he or she doesn't have to worry about what's the technology they are testing. Right. So that's how we have simplified it. Now, when it comes to automating those object libraries, we have a pre-built, action library that we have built. It's built, from a very simple action to the most complex action. Now, the way we have built this object library, we have kept the automation engineer and the developer in mind while we are building that object library. So we have all the complex actions you can think about, but we have simplified that in a way that, once you build your object library, you select an object that you want to automate, the tool is going to automatically filter those actions and, will only list those actions that are associated with that specific object, right? In a very simple, plain English term. Now, you map it, you give your input, your output is your validation, and then you start automating, right? That's how we have simplified our automation process. Now, when it comes for execution, we have some smart scheduling, parallel execution, right? We support all that. Again, the whole idea here is to reduce your execution time, which is another biggest challenge in the automation world, right? And then finally, when it comes to dashboard and reporting, we allow you to capture a screenshot of every step that you execute, right? And also we allow you to record a video of the entire execution. Now, the reason why we are taking that approach is to reduce your debugging time. So that way, even the business owner or the business users also understand where the issue is, at a very visual level, right? So that's the process. Now here, there are three roles: test manager, test lead, and test engineer. So based on the role, they'll have the privileges to access the tool and work with the tool, right? Any questions, Troy?
Yeah, would you like to kind of give a quick overview around how this platform fits in a DevOps ecosystem, right? Like your test management and your test reporting. Is it like going to talk to any ALM, or it has the ALM features as well? Your CI tool like Jenkins to make it kind of enable the auto trigger or auto execution of test cases when there is a build ready or there is a deployment that just happened. Would you like to tell a little about that?
Absolutely. So, like I said, we support, we integrate with most of our ALM tools, right? To name a few, Jira, then your HLM, sorry, what is that? HPALM,
Yes.
then TFS, right? So we have those, and Zephyr, so we integrate with those. Now, let's say if there are any ALM tools that we are, you don't see that in our list, we have a exposed API that you can leverage and you can integrate, using our exposed API. Now, when it comes to integration with ALM tools, every tool that we integrate, works a little differently. Like for example, let's say you're talking about Jira, right? Now with Jira, what we do is we do bug tracking for Jira. So, you map all your test cases from the Jira to our Azure, right? And when you execute, if there is any test step that fails, automatically it'll create a defect and then log into Jira, right? So that's how, it works with the ALM tool. Now, when it comes to CI/CD tool, right? Let's say, for example, I'll give you something with Jenkins. So we support Jenkins, Bamboo, GitHub, GitLab, including the Azure DevOps, right? To name a few. So here you can trigger executions, you can fetch your reports for all the app types, right? So as and when there's a new code being pushed in, your tool is going to get notified, and automatically you can trigger the execution and fetch the reports in Azure, right? So that's how we fit in this entire DevOps and the ALM ecosystem.
Got it. Okay, that's cool.
Right. So let me bring up my tool. All right. So this is the home screen. Okay. So a couple of plugins here. First is mind map. That's the first step of the process. Then we have integrations. So if you go into integration, this is where we integrate with your ALM tools like Qtest, ALM, Zephyr, right, and Jira. And like I said, if you don't see anything here, then we have an exposed API through which you can integrate your ALM tool, right? Now. There are a couple of other plugins like utilities. Utilities is nothing but Vault. What we have seen is, a lot of data needs to be encrypted and secured. So we use these three, encryption method, that AES, MD5, and base64. So you can encrypt, all your sensitive data while you're, designing, automating, or you're executing, right? Now, quickly to start with, like I said, mind map. So this is our first step of the process, and very important. Our tool has only 4 screens, right? Everything happens in this 4 screens. And that is the reason, that's how we have simplified the whole process. Now, the entire screen journey remains the same, irrespective of the technology you're automating. It could be a desktop application, web application, mobile, everything remains the same. You'll really not see any much of a difference. The only thing what you'll see is, let's say if you're doing SAP, you'll see an SAP plugin. If you see, if you're doing web, you'll see browsers, right? And I'm going to point that out. Now, to start with, here on the left-hand side, right, these are all the different projects that we have created on different technologies, and all this is going to be handled on the admin portal. So you have your SAP, your SuccessFactors, your desktop, right, your web application, your web services, that's your API, Oracle, Dem, right? Pretty much across all the different technologies. So now today I'm going to be walking through web, and like I said, again, it doesn't really make any difference based on what technology you're working. Everything remains the same, right? So now coming to mind map, right, there are 3 different ways that you can create mind map. So one, let's say if you want to create from scratch, okay, that's the module. Now we follow this hierarchy at the bottom: module, scenarios, screens, and test cases. So that's the hierarchy that we are following, right? So I'm going to be creating my module. So once I create my module, and all this is going to be done based on the requirements, right? So just think about it, based on the requirement. Traditionally, what we do is we write the test cases in an ALM tool or an Excel or a Word. Here, you're doing everything very, visual. So once you've created the mind map, this is how you would, add your scenarios. Now, once you add your scenarios, right, you'll add your screens, right? And then once you add your screens, you're going to be adding your test cases, right? So this is how easy it is to create this entire flow. Now, this is very, very important, because this is what is going to, define how you're going to be maintaining your test scripts or your test scenarios, right? As you keep evolving and as the test modules keep growing. Now, here, what you're seeing is every screen that you see here on the screen is going to be holding your object library. That is the second step of the process. So as you keep building your object library for that specific screen, right, it is going to be coming here and storing that. Similarly, for the test cases. Now, you had asked us a question, saying that, when it comes to maintaining the test steps, right, how easy it is. Now, if you, kind of see here, so I have like around 4 scenarios. For this 4 scenarios, I have 3 screens, and for every screen, I'll have a test case, right? So let's say I have a test case. So let's assume my screen 3 has some changes. It goes through some, it undergoes through some changes. There are some new features that are being involved. Now, because those screens are defined, independently, we know that I need to come and make those changes here in the screen 3 and immediately make those changes here in the test cases that are associated with that screen, right? So that way, managing and maintaining your test scripts becomes very, very easy.
So try what another aspect is, a lot of this, or all of this is reusable, right? So if you've already built a login screen, or you've captured the objects for a login screen and built a test case around that, just as an example, if you want to reuse that in a different part of the test case or the test scenario, you can, or across the team, you can. And when you make an update in one screen from a maintenance perspective, it'll update across the entire database, right? So you don't need to go and update every single screen that is reusing that same test case, right? It'll do it in one shot for you.
Very nice. Yep. This looks really simplified, guys. So cool.
Yeah. So, let me bring up a logical flow that, we have created for a simple test case. So that what you saw try was the way of, you doing from scratch. Like I said, there are 3 ways you can do this mind map. Second is, let's say you already have, your test cases, your manual test cases or test cases in ALM, right? How can you reuse and create the, convert them into mind maps? So we support, Excel. So you can generate an Excel template using our tool itself and just, import all your test cases into that template, and you can import it into Azure, and automatically you can generate this mind map. And the third is using our Discover. So using our Discover, you just capture the functionality and feature that you want to automate, and it'll generate this mind map. But with Discover, what it does is it not only generates this mind map, it also will start building object libraries automatically for every screen and test steps for every test cases, right? So that's how the Discover works. So that's how you build mind map in a different way. So here, if you look at, we have a very small test case, a customer is logging into a bank account and initiating a fund transfer. That's the functionality that we are going to be testing, right? So that's the module. So for that, we have one scenario, that is a fund transfer validation. Now, for me to test this specific scenario, I know for a fact, based on my requirement, that I have to go through these 4 screens, right? Home screen, login screen, fund transfer screen, and confirm screen. And for every screen, I have a test case, right? So that is how I've designed it. So let's say if I have to add another scenario in this module itself, how easy it is for me to add it. So all I need to do is I click here, I add another scenario. If I want to add another test case for this specific screen, that's a confirm screen, I just click here, add another test case, right? This is how easy it is to keep scaling your test modules or test cases, right? So now, once you build this entire mind map, we also have another section where you need to go and assign it. So this is very important to manage your testing efforts across the team, right? So here, all you need to do is you click on this. Okay, here we are very flexible. You can assign an entire module to a specific, a tester, or you can assign a single scenario or a single screen or a single test cases. Now, with functional testing, we also support accessibility testing as well, which just by a click of a button, you can enable our accessibility testing ability. And all it does is when you execute your functional testing, automatically it will start a crawl for your accessibility, and it will go and check all the compliances that needs to be followed, right? Now, how it is done? Very simple. At a scenario level, you just click here. Now, next to the task, okay, I have something called execute scenario with accessibility, execute scenario, accessibility only. So all I need to do is just select that, enable that, and you're done. You don't have to do anything else to perform an accessibility testing, right? That's another very powerful feature that we have. So now let me assign this. So this is how you assign. This is going to be a reviewer, your start date, your end date, right? You can make notes. Okay. So these modules, these scenarios will be, only the tester who has been assigned is going to be able to access and work on it. So if somebody is working on it, nobody else can actually go and work. So that is how this entire mechanism is built. Okay. So now what we have done is we have built the mind map, we have assigned it. Now we get into the automation space, right? So this is very important, right? Under my task, if you see line 1 and line 2, it's for execution. But if you look at line 3 and line 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you can see scrape, design, scrape, design, scrape, design. So scrape is nothing but a screen that we have designed in the mind map, right? So that's your object library. And design is nothing but your test case that you're designed in the mind map. So that's where you go and start automating your test steps, right? So because we have listed and we have designed it this fashion, you can easily figure out how easy it is to maintain and manage if there are any changes for a specific screen or a test cases, right? So now the first step is to create an object library, before we start automating, right? So this is where we start creating and building your object library. So like I was saying, right, the entire screen journey remains the same. Now, because I'm automating a web application, you see we support all these browsers. So it is showing, all these browsers that we support. If it is an SAP, you'll just see an SAP launchpad or a plugin. If it's a desktop application, you'll see a desktop, so on and so forth. Now, when it comes to web, right, there are 2 scenarios. One is greenfield and one is a brownfield scenario, right? Now, in that agile, how do you go ahead and automate within the sprint? That's in sprint automation. You have 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The biggest challenge is your application is not available. You're having a lot of dependency. The testers are waiting. But with Azure, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait. You can go ahead. You can automate and be prepared for your application to come in for testing. And once your application comes in to your sandbox, you just need to do is map and you execute. And that's what I'm going to show you. So while I'm showing you, I'm going to show you 2 things. One is how you automate in the sprint, right? And second thing is how efficiently you can capture the object library, which we have been talking about, right? Any questions, Tribe, before I start?
Yes, one question. We have different approaches to testing, right? Test-driven development or DDD, model-based testing. So Azure is using any of them?
So we are using, like I said, we are using page object model framework. So it's keyword driven. Right, that's the framework that we are using.
Okay, got it.
Right. So So like I said, let's assume, right, we are in the agile, we have 2-week, 3-week sprints, application is going through those changes or development, and we don't have the application to automate. So in that scenario, how do we do it? So, for creating a mind map, we don't need any application. All we need is a requirement, right? So now we have something called add object. So using add object, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start creating my custom object library, right? So based on the requirement, I know this is a username. These are all the different object types. So I'm going to map it. I'll add another object here, right? Password, same thing. And then I know that we have a login button. So this is going to be a button, and I submit, okay? And I save, right? So now what I've done is I've gone ahead and I have built this entire custom object library. Now, by doing this, the tool allows me to go ahead and even automate it. I don't have to wait for the application to be in hand. So now I'll go to my design center, right? So that's where we automate without writing a single line of code. So I'm going to add a couple of lines, okay? And so here, if you see under the object name, right, these are all the different we have some generic objects, and this is the custom object that I have built, right? So let's say if I have to automate, so I know for a fact that first I need to open a browser. So I say add browser. Now, based on the object I select, right, I'll have all the actions that are going to be associated with that specific object listed out here. So I'll say open browser. Okay, this is my input. When I talk about input, that's where you provide your data. Now, when it comes to data, we support most of the source files like Excel, CSV file, and also we support most of the databases, right? And output is your validation. And here you can, you can put your remarks, right? If you have any remarks. Now, when it comes to detail, you can, define what's your expected results, what's your actual results, what's your, actual results based on the status, right? So you can manage all this. So now what I've done is I'm going to start, So I'm going to start automating this, right? So I'll say browser, open browser. Okay. Now, once I do that, I'll say navigate to URL, right? And again, keep in mind, I'm actually automating without my application being available for me to automate, right? So I'm going my URL here. Now, this is my username, right? So these are all the different actions I can perform on a text box. So in this case, I'll say set text. Okay. So this is my username. Again, all this data can be encrypted, like I showed, through our vault. So this is my password. Okay, set text. And then finally, login, click, and I'm going to save it. So what I've done, you saw, we don't have application to test, right? I've created a custom object library using our add object feature, and I've also gone ahead and automated it, right? Now let's assume in the second week of the sprint, I get my application for testing. So all that you would need to do is come here, launch the application, and you map the objects and you're executing. Now, while I'm doing that, I'm also showing you how easy it is to capture your object. So let's assume it is not an agile, it's a regular waterfall model in a regular scenario where you have your application, ready for testing, right? How would you actually go and capture those objects, right? So here, all I'm going to do is I launch my browser. Okay. So once my browser opens, I'm going to give my URL. Okay. Now, if you see, there's a small box that has popped up. Okay, now using this is what we are going to start capturing and building our object library. So here, a couple of features or options the way you can build your object library. So first, let's say if you want to do a full scrape, that means all the objects that you want to capture, right? You can do that, or all the buttons, all the checkboxes, radio buttons, you can do that. Now, like Vidru was saying, this is an iris, right? This is what Vidru was referring to. If you want to capture objects on VDI machine, on centric machine, right? Most of the objects can be captured by simple start and click, but if not, then we use iris. But till today, we have really not seen a lot of our customers using iris. There's very little, because most of the objects can be handled by simple point and click, right? Now, in this scenario, if you want to capture very specific objects, right? In this scenario, all I need is to capture username, password, and sign in. How do I do that? I just click here, right? Start, click, and add. It takes few seconds, to establish the connection with your server. It'll change to stop. Once it changes to stop, all I need to do is click here, click here, click here. So the yellow highlight, what you're seeing is a validation for the end user saying that those objects have been captured. So I hit stop. So once I hit stop, it takes another couple of seconds to render all those objects before it is saved in Azure. So I come here and I hit save. Okay. So now what I've done is, first I've built a custom object library. Now again, keep in mind, building a custom object library is not mandatory, right? We only do that when we are, automating in a greenfield scenario. That's, you don't have your application. So if you have your application in hand, you don't need to build a custom object library. You just go click and add. Now on the right hand side, we also capture a screenshot for every object that you capture, right? So if you want to validate here, just click here and you'll see the yellow highlight saying that, okay, that's my object that I've captured, right? So now all I need to do is, in the agile world, I have something called map object. I come here, okay? So these are my custom objects that I've built. I just drag and drop those objects that I've captured into my custom object library, okay? So that I do that, I hit submit, and there you go. So now I'm actually ready for executing. This is in the agile, and in the regular scenario, that is how easily you could go and capture. Now there are a couple of things here. This object library that I'm building, it gets integrated into your mind map for every screen, right? That can be reused from there. Or we have an option called export and import. You can export from here itself all the objects that you want to reuse. You'll have a JSON file that gets downloaded. Now if somebody is very technical, they know how to work with JSON, they can make those changes in JSON file and they can import it as well. Now if somebody wants to create their own object, or if you want to handle any dynamic object, we have this option called create object. Here you can give all this information for like absolute path, relative path, map it to the object type, and you can create those objects as well, right? So that's how the entire object library works. Now when it comes to design, now if I go back to my design page, if you see here, right, the purple highlight has been it doesn't show anymore, because the reason is we have mapped those custom object to the actual object that we have captured. Right now you can debug from here itself, right, before you actually get into the execution, right? And same thing, all the test steps that we design gets integrated into the test case in the mind map, so you can reuse it from the mind map, or you can export all the test steps and import it to a different test case or a different scenario, right? So that's how this entire process works. And again, the screen journey remains the same for every technology. Any questions, Troy?
That was smart. I really like the way you created the script before even the application is available, and even after when we got the application, you did not have to do much to make the script work, right? So that's really smart. That's really smart. And I think the current challenge is in sprint automation. I think the testing window is so short, right?
Right.
So test engineers do not have much time to kind of complete the end-to-end testing. So what they do generally to bring a quick fix, they prioritize the test cases.
Right.
So there might be some risks also that get unnoticed, where people should focus. They might say, no, we can let it go without any execution. But they kind of look at some prioritized scenarios where they think testing should be done more thoroughly, right? Leaving the realistic scenario left behind. I think that is a bigger risk that they take, right? I think if you have capabilities like this with your tool, I think you can definitely address that issue. I really like that smart feature.
Absolutely. And a lot of our customers, they are seeing a lot of value in that, because just think about it, during your story writing phase, you are creating your mind map parallelly, right? And within that week, you start building your custom object library, because while your stories are getting written, you're also parallelly building your custom object library. So everything has, works parallelly hand in hand, which is why we can achieve that in sprint automation. Now, another very important function I want to talk about is a debug function. Now, when it comes to debugging, right, obviously we have a regular normal debug option where you can check everything is working fine. But on top of that, we have something called advanced debugging. So what it does is, if there is a change in the property, our advanced debug feature allows you to recapture, while you're debugging itself, that specific property, and allows you to make the change here itself. And every object that you capture using a debug, advanced debug, feature, it will apply the changes across all the test cases that is being used or reused, right? So that's how the advanced debugging feature also works, right? Now, coming to our execution suite, okay, this is how our execution suite looks. Again, because this is browser web, you see all these browsers. If it is a desktop, you'll see a desktop launchpad, so on and so forth. Now, we support parallel execution, where you can engage all these browsers, for your testing. And then we also integrate with Source Lab. If you want to perform multi-browser, right, or multi-browser versioning, you can do that. Using Source Lab integration, we also allow you to execute the existing Selenium scripts, right, and fetch reports using Azure. Plus, we also have a feature and functionality that just released yesterday, where you can ingest Selenium scripts into Azure and convert them to no code as well, right? So those are the couple of features. Now we have, this is just one scenario, but let's say if you have 10, 20 scenarios, you can pick and choose what scenarios you want to execute. For every scenario, we also give you an option to data parameterize, so you can work with very specific data set as well, right? Now, here we have something called Smart Scheduler. This is what I was talking about. You can schedule, I mean, again, it works with a typical feature of scheduling where you can schedule your regression, execution, specific date, specific time. But when it comes to smart scheduling, what it does is our tool will allow you to, create a pool of your test systems, right? And assign the projects and scenarios. So once those projects are, executed, the tool will automatically identify which systems are available and distribute the test cases accordingly, right? So what we are trying to achieve here is, we are trying to achieve a parallel execution and reduce your execution time. Plus, what it does is it has some AI element. It will also start learning the pattern of your execution. So what it does is it will also learn, okay, these test cases are being executed efficiently on this test system. So next time when those test cases come in for execution during regression or UATs, it will automatically align those test cases to that specific system, right? So that's how our entire smart scheduling works. So you can do a queue, you can do modular smart scheduling, you can do scenario levels smart scheduling. So those are all the different features. Now, to track the execution, we have an option where you can set up your email. So you can configure your email. So all the activities happening, during the execution, the end user will, have email notification, with the reports attached, right? So that's how the entire execution works. Now,
with that, scheduling and those features that you just, went over briefly. So that actually eliminates the need of Jenkins, right?
So that's a good question. So when it comes to smart scheduling, right, what it does is we are handling that at our module within our system, right? Now, Jenkins is still required because our system will only get notified of any code changes through Jenkins, right? So that is how we integrate with Jenkins.
Okay, got it.
No, so when it comes to reports, right? So let me get into the reports and I'll quickly touch on those, right?
All right.
So here, if you see, these are functional testing reports and these are accessibility testing reports. So you can fetch both. So these are all the different projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can fetch them, release, by cycle, okay? And all the reports are scenario based. So I click on one of the scenarios. This is a very high level dashboard, snapshot, and I'll show you the dashboard. So we support 3 formats, PDF, browser, and JSON. So you can leverage the JSON format, right? And you can ingest into, any of your tool to kind of, play with those data, or, or you can fetch the data from another tool in terms of analytics, right? So that is the option that we have given. So that's the reason we have given a JSON format as well. Okay. Now, if I click on one of the format, this is how my report looks. It's very simple, right? Every step, your expected results, your actual results. This is your, status, pass or fail, time taken for every step for execution. And now if I have a failed step and if I click on that, it'll take me to the screen where it's failed, right? Also, it'll allow you to record a video of the entire execution. Okay, so that is how the report looks. Now, quickly on the dashboard, right? This is how my dashboard looks. Okay, now this dashboard can be completely configured and customized, right? So here, if you see, you can see overall summary, pending status, right? Your test suite, scenarios, and test cases. Execution per ICE, this is nothing but execution per system, right? Or a per tester. And if you hover around the, on top of the graph, you'll see, it'll give you a snippet of that information, right? Execution status per day. Now, these are all the test execution analysis tables. So it'll show what are the scenarios that, that has been executed. This is a summary. Okay, test execution status. Now you can also pull from your ALM tool for defect analysis, right? So if I hover on top, it will show me a snippet, and as well as the defect creation and resolution. So even you can pull in information from your agile tools as well, right, to track your sprint summaries, so on and so forth. So that's how our dashboard looks.
Vidur or Santosh, like how is the licensing model works for Avo? Do you have some trial licenses that people can go and try?
Absolutely. So we, so from a commercial licensing standpoint, we offer concurrent licensing, right? And because we typically play in the enterprise market, we do have a free trial, but we don't have a freemium offering. But we're happy to sit down with customers and give them a 2-week trial if they would like to play with the product. And with that, we also make sure they're sufficiently trained on the product to get a real life feel. We offer the trial on our cloud. It can be on a public cloud. We can set up a private cloud if certain clients would like that, or we can even do an on-prem 2-week trial installation as well. So very flexible with the client. All we ask is let's define the objectives together. Let's measure the criteria for success very clearly before we start a trial. And then we'll be more than happy to, handhold the customers, get them comfortable with the product, and then let them play with the product over a 2-week period.
Super. No, thank you, Vidur. That was very much helpful. And team, thank you so much for such a great showcase today. Thanks for your time again, Vidur.
Thank you. Thank you, Troy. Really appreciate it. And look forward to continuing our conversations. If you have any questions or your audience has any questions, do feel free to reach out to us at info@avoautomation.com. Thank you.